ridingalong.com. Today's episode is all about why you don't need a big vocabulary to write well, or in general, you don't. It's not necessary. It's not a prerequisite. You don't need to have this kind of preface of yourself as this well versed in the lexicon of vocab of your language to really proliferate and effective and highly. You see what I'm saying? I'm using a bunch of words. I'm not reading them off, but all those words are unnecessary. They're really might confuse your message. It's okay to use one every now and then. It's okay if you have a big vocabulary, but a lot of people don't, and that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to worry about being a living, walking dictionary. People don't care about how many words you know. They care about how well you use the ones that you do know. And that's all it really takes to have clear and effective writing. As far as your word choice, how you use them, again, is not probably, it is the biggest factor in how well your writing comes out and how people respond and react to it. People like to feel good. People like to feel smart, and they do when you have a story you write and they don't have any trouble picking up on what you're trying to say. And this doesn't mean you have to limit yourself. Use a big word every now and then, especially if you want to. Especially if it's something that you actually want to do. But if you feel like you need to, you're not just going to attract the wrong audience, you're going to attract no audience, because people aren't reading a thesaurus, and without definitions, that's what your book will come across if you just insert these gigantic words. And I don't just mean gigantic in the sense of how long they are. I mean in just how obscure they are and how much meaning they convey, that really it's minuscule, because you can have the most perfectly descriptive power word, but if people don't know it, if you're not defining it for them, you're losing them. And that's not a place you want to be as a writer. That's actually really the opposite. You're pushing people away. And most people don't know better when starting, and they just need someone to kind of tell them and align this for them, which is save yourself the hassle of writing a bunch of stories with all these words that you thought you had to include when really you never did, and when really it was doing really worse. It was really accomplishing a task you never wanted to do, which is pushing away readers, potential readers. Someone's going to open your book and be like, okay, cool, time to read whatever this person has to say. This looks like a really interesting story. And they open it, and it's like a scientific abstraction. It doesn't convey. It's in their language. It's technically words that are in their composed of the same root words, and are in all the same structure linguistically. But what does it mean? I may as well just be reading a formula. You ever read a lot of medical stuff? If you open a medical textbook ever one day, it's really dense. Not because it's not stuff you can't comprehend, not because it's stuff you can't understand. I mean, it's your body. You should be able to understand yourself, right? Most people should be able to, but for convenience sake, in the actual field of practical study, a lot of words are condensed and highly specialized. It's almost like it's its own breed of the English language for biologists, for scientists, for people who are studying that field. But if you're writing stories, you're not writing just for scientists. You're not writing just for these people. You're writing for an audience, a real group of people that doesn't just theoretically exist, but no, they really exist. And you don't want them to be struggling and being at the seams of their being, just trying to figure out what you're saying, because they don't have time for it. Not because they're not up for a challenge, not because your audience is dumb, not because they're weak-minded and they just don't have the same vocabulary capacity that you do. Do you really have the vocabulary capacity? Are you regularly using those words to have conversations? Again, you might have these words that not everyone knows, but you use them in your daily conversations. Go ahead and put them in your book. Give it a try. That means you'll attract a real audience, because you're real. You exist as a person, and there are other people like you. Not exactly like you, but there are people who know the words you know, and you'll be talking to them. You'll be speaking to them. You'll be automatically filtering out your audience so that you don't get this tremendous amount of people, and none of them ever even really connect with what you wrote, and they never finish what you wrote. They never reach out to you about it, and it's just you don't want to attract the wrong reader. And sometimes your reader might be everybody, and sometimes it's not so much you faking yourself or you faking your writer identity, but it does require you to present yourself in a way as if you were just talking to a group of people maybe you don't even know, but for that reason you're coming from this place that I want these people to understand me. So I'm not just going to use all these litter my sentences with all these words that they won't know. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable saying, hey, the sky's blue, that was good, this is nice, this will give us promote improvements, this will allow for, and that's a very formal, that in itself is a formal setting, but it's not formal because I use a bunch of fancy words. It's because I acknowledge who I'm speaking to, and I'm like, I don't want to give you a bunch of work to figure out what I'm saying. No, you just want to get the meaning, and that's all your readers really are looking for. They're looking for a story to take them somewhere. In order to be taken there, that's not the hard part at all. The hard part is yourself, is analyzing why you're writing on to begin with. Like, why are you starting? The hardest part too is it's all the inner stuff that you can figure out on in your mind. But the cool thing is, it's difficult, but it's not impossible, and it's not something you have to spend your entire life dedicated to, right? And never actually getting anywhere or being able to see any progress. No, it's something you can see progress in every day, every minute. If writing is something, if it's an integral part of your life. But I said this early on in the video because it's that important, and I'm gonna say it again right now. If you skipped here or your attention is just really picking up right now, you don't need a big vocabulary. You never did, and you won't in the future. The words you know are just fine as is. That's not saying don't learn any new words, but it's just letting that weight off your shoulder. You don't gotta pretend to be this person on the page who uses all these terms that you never really use. It's gonna come off as inauthentic, and authentic writing is what I'm really trying to promote here on Writing Along, because it's missing in a lot of places, and some people just need some guidance to know what works and what doesn't. And I can tell you right away, being pseudo with your word, not just being false, not communicating and conveying through writing the way that you would normally, you can't escape it. You can't put up this mask, this facade. People see through it. And when you're speaking in the way that you would normally, it's almost like people appreciate it instinctively. They're like, oh wow, this person is really showing me their true self, and it's coming across. And it doesn't mean you're giving them your life story, but it just means you're being honest, and that's valuable. Honesty is not common. You don't find it everywhere. In fact, it's so easy to be honest, yet why can't I find it on TV? Like, why can't I find, there's people trying to sell me stuff and they're not being honest. I mean, sometimes people are, but it's just like I'm put off by it to begin with, and all this stuff is something you can just do. You can just tell the truth, and it doesn't mean pouring your deepest, darkest secrets out into the public sphere. It just sometimes means talking to people and saying what you mean in the best way that you can. Obviously you want to say what you're trying to say, but again, the key part there is saying it in the best way that you can, in the way that you're supposed to naturally, the way that you're not forcing it to come out in that way. And again, this idea of using the words that you already know and learning how to use them well, it's uncomfortable to build your vocabulary, and it's best built on accident. And yet you might find a guide. I'll create a guide on that, how to build your vocabulary. I'll create that video soon, but it's not necessary to get started writing today, to get started writing right now, to write your book right now. And if you just write a few stories you might be, David, I'm serious, I only know maybe 100 words, and that's all I use in my day-to-day basis, maybe even less. That's all I use. I don't know how I get by. Write a story with just those. and then write another, and write another, and write another, and write another. And you'll notice, oh, I'm using the same ones, but the way I'm placing them is a little. It's like my mind is improving, and it's not practicing. Don't think of it as practicing, because it's more like building. It's more like strengthening your own abilities, but not just fruitlessly, not just with something you can't show for. No, you can show for it with your practice writings, and that's why I don't want to call it that, because there's something to show for. You write a book with as best as you can in the way that you feel comfortable doing it. And fact is, you're confident in it or you're not, you got a book. And that in itself speaks plenty. That in itself is amazing. And you can write another. And when you write that other one, it doesn't have to be a novel. That's kind of intimidating right now. But writing a book, just a short story, keep doing that and see what happens. You'll find that your writing gets clearer. And you don't even have to learn any new words. In fact, if you learn some new ones, it'll be fun. You actually want to learn them, because it's like you didn't need to. It wasn't necessary. And you'll be internalizing and embracing these new, bigger words because you want to. Because they're a supplement to your writing. They help. You're not reaching out at them in desperation. And in that way, it's like it's a circle. It's a legitimately this loop that all comes full circle, and with it, your writing will remain authentic, and you'll still be able to use all these other new words you learned, but you'll be coming at it from an authentic place. And don't disparage yourself. Look that word up. Am I pronouncing it wrong? Maybe I am. Look up the official pronunciation. It doesn't matter how many words you know right now. The fact is, write the best you can with them and get better at using those ones. That's all you need to do to get started. And if you're trying to write a book, check out How to Write a Book in 30 Days, 10-part guide at writingalone.com, completely free. Grab your copy, and I'll see you around. Thanks for stopping by today.